On a standard world map, India's borders appear deceptively clean, forming a near-perfect diamond shape pointing into the Indian Ocean. But drop down to the ground, and that simplicity vanishes. This perimeter consists of a 15,106-kilometer land border shared with 7 different countries, alongside nearly 7,900 kilometers of coastline. These political lines are forced across the highest mountains on Earth, through shifting river deltas, across barren deserts, and out into deep oceans, a geography that naturally resists static boundaries. Because the terrain does not respect political demarcations, India's perimeter has become one of the most highly contested and heavily militarized zones on the planet. The perimeter begins at the absolute northern extreme, Indira Kol in Ladakh. In this landscape of frozen peaks, the border is a collection of competing claims rather than a single recognized line. India shares a 3,488-kilometer border with China, defined by the historical Johnson and McMahon lines and the modern line of actual control. This lack of clarity creates strategic flashpoints like the Galwan and Shaksgam valleys, the latter ceded by Pakistan to China in 1963. To the west, the line of control with Pakistan runs through similarly hostile mountainous terrain, where the sheer verticality of the landscape makes standard border enforcement a physical impossibility. Geopolitical lines drawn by diplomats decades ago remain incompatible with the physical reality of the Himalayas, maintaining a state of permanent high-altitude tension. Moving east to Kibithu in Arunachal Pradesh, the border eventually drops down into the plains, stretching 4,096 kilometers along boundary with Bangladesh. This is the Radcliffe Line, a colonial demarcation drawn in 1947 that largely ignored the natural flow of rivers and the local populations living along them. That mapping process created extreme geographic outliers. The state of Tripura, for instance, is a peninsula of Indian land almost entirely surrounded by Bangladesh. This contrasts sharply with the borders of Nepal and Bhutan, which are geographically integrated and kept open via long-standing treaties rather than physical barriers. Securing the eastern plains requires a massive physical infrastructure, with metal fencing cutting through dense rural landscapes. These riverine and plains borders present a different challenge than the mountains. Any attempt at physical demarcation here faces a constant battle against shifting waterways and daily human movement. Under international maritime law, or UNCLOS, India's borders extend deep into the ocean. This includes 12 nautical miles of territorial waters and an exclusive economic zone that projects out to 200 nautical miles. Because of these maritime reaches, India's true southern extreme is located at Indira Point in the distant Andaman and Nicobar Islands, rather than the mainland coast. These islands are the submerged peaks of the Arakan Yoma mountain range, extending from Myanmar into the Bay of Bengal. These outposts are geographically volatile, featuring the active volcano on Barren Island. These islands are also home to isolated indigenous tribes who have remained separated from the modern world for thousands of years. To the west, the Lakshadweep Islands present a completely different geology. These are coral atolls, formed by the slow accumulation of marine life rather than volcanic activity. The perimeter loop ends in the west at Gujarat Sur Creek, a disputed tidal estuary where the boundary shifts daily with the tides. This maritime perimeter forces India to defend its sovereignty across diverse environments, from unstable mudflats to distant oceanic fortresses. Looking at the entire subcontinent, the scale of the challenge is clear. The extreme geographic diversity makes a single, uniform border defense strategy impossible. The freezing, high-altitude Himalayan frontier requires the specialized training of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, or ITBP. The sprawling river plains and deserts of the west and east are managed by a different entity, the Border Security Force, or BSF. These are supported by the Sashastra Seema Bal in the Himalayan foothills and the massive naval infrastructure required to protect the oceanic borders. In India, a border is a geographic reality, defined by the continuous collision of ancient geology, colonial history, and modern strategy.